I cut my business trip to Frankfurt short when the medical device conference ended a day early, eager to surprise my wife Rachel after being away for 8 days. Flying back to Chicago, I was excited to spend an unexpected evening together before she returned from her girls' weekend in Napa Valley the next day. When I entered our house around 6 p.m., I found Rachel's home office door slightly open with papers scattered across her desk. Unusual since she's normally meticulous about organization. My name is Benjamin Stone, 41 years old, founder and CEO of MedTech Innovations, and I was about to discover documents that revealed my wife had been planning to financially destroy me. My company develops surgical robotics and medical devices, generating approximately $50 million annually in revenue. After building the business from nothing over 15 years, I was worth roughly $80 million between company equity, real estate investments, and liquid assets. Rachel and I had been married for 5 years without a prenuptial agreement. I'd trusted her completely and believed our love transcended financial consideration. What I found on her desk was a fully executed prenuptial agreement dated 3 months before our wedding, signed by both of us, that would strip me of 60% of my wealth in case of divorce. I stared at the document in disbelief. The signature looked exactly like mine, but I had never signed a prenuptial agreement. We discussed it briefly during our engagement and mutually decided we didn't need one since we trusted each other completely. This document shall remain confidential and sealed until such time as divorce proceedings are initiated by either party, the cover letter read. The agreement gave Rachel $30 million immediately upon divorce filing, plus ongoing payments that would total another $20 million over 10 years. I had supposedly agreed to the most financially destructive prenup imaginable, and I had no memory of ever seeing these documents before. I met Rachel Caldwell 6 years ago at a medical industry gala in San Francisco. She was working as a pharmaceutical sales representative for a major company, intelligent and ambitious, with an MBA from Northwestern. We connected over shared interests in healthcare innovation and travel. Rachel was different from other women I'd dated. She seemed genuinely interested in my work and business challenges, rather than just the wealth I'd accumulated. She'd ask thoughtful questions about medical device development, regulatory approval processes, and market expansion strategy. "I love how passionate you are about improving patient outcomes," Rachel had said during one of our early dates. "It's inspiring to meet someone who's building something meaningful rather than just pursuing profit." This perspective on my work had been incredibly attractive. Most people in my social circle were focused on wealth accumulation, but Rachel seemed to appreciate the humanitarian aspects of medical device innovation. After 18 months of dating, I proposed to Rachel during a vacation in Tuscany. She'd been supportive of my demanding work schedule, understanding about business travel, and had integrated seamlessly into my social and professional networks. "Benjamin, I love you for who you are, not what you've built," Rachel had said when I'd proposed. "I want to be your partner in life, not just your wife." During our engagement, we'd had brief discussions about prenuptial agreements. Several of my business advisors had recommended protecting my assets, given the substantial value of my company and investments. "Do you think we need a prenup?" I'd asked Rachel one evening while we were wedding planning. "Ben, I'm not marrying you for your money," she'd replied. "I have my own career and financial independence. A prenup would feel like we're planning for failure instead of believing in our marriage." Rachel's response had aligned with my romantic feelings about our relationship. I dismissed my advisor's concerns and decided to trust completely in our love and partnership. We'd married at a beautiful ceremony in Napa Valley, surrounded by family and friends. Rachel had seemed genuinely happy and in love, and I'd felt confident we were building a strong foundation for lifelong partnership. Our first few years of marriage had been mostly harmonious. Rachel had left pharmaceutical sales to pursue consulting work that allowed her more flexibility to travel with me and manage our social calendar. "I want to focus on being your partner rather than climbing someone else's corporate ladder," Rachel had explained when leaving her job. "My consulting income covers my personal expenses, and I can be more present for our relationship." Rachel's consulting work was vague. She claimed to advise pharmaceutical companies on market research and product positioning. but I'd been too busy with my own company's growth to ask detailed questions about her professional activity. During our third year of marriage, I'd noticed Rachel becoming increasingly interested in my business finances and legal structures. "Ben, I want to understand more about MedTech's value and your investment portfolio," she'd said one evening. "If something happens to you, I need to know how to manage our assets." This seemed like responsible financial planning, and I'd shared general information about company structure, asset distribution, and estate planning arrangement. Rachel had also started attending more industry events with me, networking with other executives' wives and developing friendships with women in similar social circles. "I'm learning so much about wealth management and business strategy from other successful couples," she'd tell me after these social events. 2 years ago, Rachel had suggested we update our estate planning and financial documentation. "Ben, we should make sure our legal documents reflect our current situation," she'd said. "Our marriage, your company's growth, the real estate investments, everything should be properly documented." Rachel had recommended a law firm that specialized in high net worth estate planning, claiming they'd been referred by friends from our social circle. "Morrison and Associates handles complex financial planning for several couples we know," she'd explain. "They understand the unique challenges of protecting significant assets." I'd agreed to meet with the attorneys, trusting Rachel's research and referral source. During our meetings with Morrison and Associates, the attorneys had discussed various legal structures for asset protection, business succession planning, and tax optimization. The conversations were complex and technical, covering multiple scenarios and contingencies. "We'll prepare comprehensive documentation that addresses all the financial and legal considerations we've discussed," the lead attorney, Patricia Morrison, had explained. Over the following weeks, I'd signed multiple documents related to estate planning, business structure updates, and investment account modifications. The paperwork was extensive and technical, requiring signatures on dozens of forms and legal instruments. Rachel had been present for most of these signings, asking detailed questions and taking notes about various aspects of our financial planning. "I want to make sure I understand everything we're agreeing to," she'd said, which seemed like responsible partnership behavior. But looking back, I realized that Rachel had been unusually focused on documents related to marital asset division and post-death financial distributions. Last year, Rachel had started making comments about marriage challenges and divorce rates among wealthy couples. "It's sad how many successful marriages end badly because of financial disputes," she'd mention after hearing about divorces in our social circle. Rachel would discuss specific cases where wealthy men had lost substantial assets in divorce proceedings, seemingly as casual conversation about people we knew. "Michael Chen lost almost half his company value when Jennifer divorced him," Rachel had said about a colleague's divorce. "He should have protected himself better before they got married." These conversations had made me uncomfortable, but I'd assumed Rachel was just processing the divorces happening around us rather than contemplating our own marriage. 6 months ago, Rachel's behavior had started changing in subtle ways that I'd attributed to normal marriage evolution. She'd become less interested in my business activities, less supportive of my work stress, and more focused on her own independent activities and friendship. "I need more personal space and individual identity," Rachel had explained when I'd commented on her increased time away from home. "I don't want to lose myself in being Benjamin Stone's wife." This seemed like healthy personal development, and I'd supported Rachel's desire for independence and self-actualization. But Rachel had also become secretive about her phone calls, her consulting work, and her financial activity. "Client confidentiality is important in my consulting business," she'd say when I'd ask about her work or income sources. 3 months ago, Rachel had announced she was planning an extended girls' weekend in Napa Valley with several friends from our social circle. "We're doing a wellness retreat and wine tasting tour," she'd explained. "It'll be good for me to have some time with female friends and focus on personal rejuvenation." I'd been supportive of Rachel's trip, though I'd noticed she'd been vague about specific details and hadn't introduced me to some of the friends she claimed to be traveling with. That's why I'd been excited to surprise her by returning early from my Frankfurt business trip. Instead, I'd found evidence that Rachel had been systematically planning to divorce me and claim a massive settlement based on a prenuptial agreement I'd never knowingly signed. I examined the documents on Rachel's desk more carefully and found a complete divorce strategy folder that revealed the scope of her planning. Rachel had been working with a different law firm, not Morrison and Associates, to develop a comprehensive plan for claiming $50 million from me based on the hidden prenuptial agreement. The folder contained financial analysis of my assets, business valuation reports, and legal strategies for maximizing settlement amounts while minimizing her own tax liability. Most disturbing, the folder included a timeline for divorce proceedings that was supposed to begin the following month. Rachel had been planning to file for divorce immediately after her return from Napa Valley, using the prenuptial agreement to claim immediate financial settlements. I also found correspondence between Rachel and the divorce attorneys discussing my business travel schedule and the optimal timing for serving divorce papers to minimize my ability to protect assets. Benjamin's upcoming European expansion requires significant focus and travel. One email from Rachel read, "Filing during this period would create maximum stress and reduce his ability to respond strategically to financial claims." Rachel had been timing her divorce filing to coincide with a period when I'd be distracted by crucial business operations. But the most shocking discovery was a report from a handwriting expert that Rachel had hired to create authentic-looking versions of my signature for various legal documents. Rachel had been systematically forging my signature on documents, including the prenuptial agreement that I'd never signed or authorized. I immediately called my attorney, James Morrison, who was not related to Patricia Morrison from the estate planning firm, and arranged an emergency meeting for that evening. "Ben, this is a complex fraud scheme," James said after reviewing the documents I'd found. "Your wife has been planning to steal millions from you using forged legal documents." James explained that the prenuptial agreement was invalid because it had been created without my knowledge or consent, but proving forgery could be difficult if Rachel had sophisticated documentation. "We need to act immediately to protect your assets and gather evidence of Rachel's fraud before she returns from her trip." Over the next 24 hours, James and I worked with forensic accountants and investigators to document Rachel's fraudulent activities and secure my financial asset. The investigation revealed that Rachel's consulting business was actually a front for coordinating her divorce planning with multiple attorneys and financial experts. Rachel had been using her pharmaceutical industry connections to research wealthy men, identify potential targets, and develop relationships designed to access their assets through marriage and subsequent divorce. Most shocking, the investigation found that Rachel had been married twice before under different names, using similar strategies to obtain financial settlements from wealthy ex-husbands. Rachel's real name was Rebecca Caldwell Morrison Stevens, and she had a documented history of targeting successful men for fraudulent marriage schemes. When Rachel returned from her Napa Valley trip, she found me waiting in our living room with my attorney, a private investigator, and copies of all the fraudulent documents she'd hidden. "Rebecca, or should I call you Rachel, we need to discuss your divorce planning and the forged prenuptial agreement." Rachel's face went white as she realized her scheme had been discovered. "Ben, I can explain everything. The prenup was for both our protection. Rebecca, you forged my signature on legal documents and planned to steal $50 million from me using fraudulent claims. This is criminal fraud, not marriage protection." I showed Rachel the evidence we'd gathered about her previous marriages, her false identity, and her systematic planning to defraud me. "We know about your previous husbands, your real name, and your pattern of targeting wealthy men for financial fraud." Rachel tried to deny the allegations and claimed the prenuptial agreement was legitimate, but the handwriting analysis and forensic evidence proved she'd forged my signature and created fraudulent documents. "Rebecca, you have two choices," James explained. "You can agree to an immediate annulment based on fraud and leave with nothing, or we can pursue criminal charges and civil litigation that will result in prison time and financial penalty." Rachel chose the annulment option, signing agreements that voided our marriage, required her to return all gifts and assets I'd provided, and included non-disclosure clauses preventing her from discussing my business or personal affairs. The investigation also led to criminal charges against the attorneys who had helped Rachel create the fraudulent documents. Several of them lost their licenses and faced prosecution for conspiracy to commit fraud. Rachel left Chicago and apparently moved to Florida, where she was eventually arrested for running similar marriage fraud schemes against other wealthy targets. The experience taught me that some people view marriage as a business opportunity rather than an emotional partnership. Rachel had spent 5 years building a relationship with me solely to position herself for a massive financial theft using forged legal documents. Her entire personality, interests, and emotional connection to me had been carefully crafted performances, designed to gain my trust and access to my asset. The girl's weekend in Napa Valley had been her final preparation for divorce proceedings that would have cost me $50 million and potentially destroyed my business through forced asset liquidation. I now have comprehensive prenuptial agreements for any future relationships, but more importantly, I understand that some people are professional predators who target successful individuals for financial exploitation. Rachel thought she could forge my signature and steal my life's work through fraudulent legal documents. She underestimated my ability to recognize and defeat financial fraud when I discovered her scheme. Sometimes the most dangerous people are those who seem most trustworthy and loving. Rachel was an expert at emotional manipulation who used my feelings for her to position herself to steal everything I'd built. Coming home early didn't just save me from a surprise divorce filing. It saved me from losing half my wealth to a professional con artist who had been planning my financial destruction for years.